Welcome to SCP-5K, the game that takes one look at the SCP Foundation and says, what if the people meant to contain the horrors become the horror? This isn't your usual run and gun shooter. It's tense, tactical, and built to keep you second guessing every hallway you step into. This is Checkpoint Dunion, where every game gets a taste test, and today we're throwing ourselves into a kitchen where the lights are flickering, the fryer's overheating, and something in the back definitely shouldn't be moving. SCP-5K blends tactical FPS with full-on horror, pulling it deep SCP lore and dropping you into scenarios where ammo is limited, teamwork matters, and panic is always one bad decision away. It's slower, heavier, and far more deliberate than most shooters, and that's very much the point. So lock the doors and check the corners provide no comfort, and don't trust anything you hear on the radio, because in SCP-5K, the oil's already hot and the Foundation is done playing nice. SCP-5K plays very differently from most shooters, and that's where it immediately stands out. This is a tactical FPS and rewards patience, communication, and planning, not running in guns blazing. Every room feels like a risk and constantly asks you to slow down before pulling the trigger. There were a few moments where the game genuinely scared the lights out of me. Sudden sounds, unexpected movements, enemies coming from places you didn't expect made me snap hard more than once. This isn't a cheap jump scare horror either. It's tension built through the atmosphere, the limited information you're receiving, and the fear that something is watching you just out of sight. Combat is deliberate and punishing. Ammo is limited, enemies hit hard, and mistakes stack up quickly. If you rush in without a plan, the game will absolutely fry you for it. Weapon handling feels grounded, recoil matters, where every shot counts, which fits the tone perfectly. Some missions are very hard without a team. Playing solo is possible, but certain objectives clearly feel designed around coordination and communication. Having teammates watch angles, calling out threats, and covering each other over stressful encounters into manageable ones. Without that support, things can spiral out of control fast. Performance-wise, SCP generally holds up, but it's still rough around the edges. Animations are stiff, AI behavior can be inconsistent, and moments where the games remind you you're still in development. That said, when everything lines up, the tension and pacing hit exactly the way it should. Overall, the gameplay delivers a solid mix of tac shooter mechanics and horror tension. It isn't trying to be comfortable. It wants you nervous, cautious, and constantly checking corners. And most of the time, it succeeds. Visually, SCP-5K commits to its hard, industrial horror aesthetic, and when it lands, it's genuinely unsettling. Tight corridors, flickering lights, and cramped interiors do a great job making you feel boxed in and exposed. The environments sell the idea you're somewhere hostile and where every corner could be your last. That said, not every area feels finished. Some locations look noticeably unpolished, and there were moments where I clicked or glitched into parts of the environment that weren't meant to be accessed. Navigation can also be rough in spots. Heavy environmental clutter or tight geometry sometimes makes it harder than it should have been to move or read a room, which can be frustrating when the pressure is already high as it is. On the south side, SCP leads into almost entirely on atmosphere rather than music. There isn't much in the way of the traditional background music, and most of the tension comes from the ambient noises, distant sounds, environmental audio, or this weird concrete sliding statue that's coming to give you a big old hug that's not so friendly. The choice works in some moments, but also means it can feel very quiet and sometimes a little too quiet. Gun audio is serviceable but repetitive. Many weapons sound similar, often feeling like the same audio profile, pitched slightly higher or slightly lower. Gets the job done, but it lacks the punch and identity you'd expect from a tactical shooter where every shot matters and telling what kind of gun you're using and see how hard it hits. Where the audio does shine is in tension. Sudden noises, echoing footsteps, radio chatter, and audio cues do a lot of the work when it comes to scares. This game is very good at making you nervous through sound alone, and overall audio package could use a little bit more variety and polish. SCP-5K nails atmosphere, both visuals and audio. It still shows signs of it being a work in progress. Foundation's strong, it just needs refinement to fully match the tension it's trying to create. SCP-5K has a strong idea at its core, but right now it's a dish that needs more time in the fryer. The horror elements work. When a game wants to be tense and unsettling, it absolutely succeeds. There were moments that genuinely caught me off guard, and the atmosphere does a lot of heavy lifting for this. That said, this is one of my more harsh reviews, and that comes directly from its early access state. There simply isn't a lot of content yet, and that's hard to ignore, with the replayability feeling limited and the gameplay very difficult to recommend for a solo experience, where some missions are designated around team play, and without that team, frustration sets in fast. For a game that's been out in some sort of form for a couple of years, even accounting for early access, the overall package feels light and rough than it should be. The polished issues, limited variety, and uneven systems hold it back from reaching the potential in the concept premise. Because of that, SCP receives a 5 out of 10 mediocre for me. The horror is there, the Foundation's interesting, but stops it from reaching where it needs to be. This is Checkpoint Dunion, where every game gets a taste test. Let me know what's next.